Hello, everyone. It's Stephen Whiteside here from the uptrend.com with your morning market outlook for Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. Well, yesterday morning at this time, here's the numbers I was working with. The Dow was down 300 and change, S&P down nearly 250. At the same time, gold was down over $300. And that's what I was basing my presentation on was this information I had in the pre-market. And so the whole tone of my presentation was based around that. And then what do you know? We had some insider trading yesterday morning. Somebody put in a big order to sell crude oil short, and at the same time they were buying the S&P 500. They did that about 15 minutes before Trump tweeted, and then the market just took off. And stock index futures were up sharply. Dow was up over 1,000 points. We had crude oil down sharply in the morning, and at the end of the day, crude oil actually ended down nearly 9%. Now, the S&P 500 did end the day on a positive note, but it was actually a negative day for the S&P 500. We'll look at that in a minute. So this morning, here's what we're dealing with. We've got stock index futures down slightly, while commodities are up slightly. For crude oil, we're up over 2% on the morning, and so that is getting us back in track to what we were seeing before yesterday's tweet. Now, it is true that the major indices closed higher yesterday, with the NASDAQ closing a couple ticks above 1%, but it's actually a negative chart pattern here. You can see that we opened right near the previous day's high, and then we actually closed below that going into the close. So a lot of short covering at the start of the day. Of course, a lot of people shorted going into Friday's close, and those people quickly covered those short positions on Monday morning. But at the end of the day, the pros were not as excited about buying the market going into the close. That is also true for the S&P 500, which opened above the previous day's high and then came down closing lower on the day. So, yes, the S&P 500 closed up over 1%, but it is a negative bar that we're looking at. Now, the Canadian market closed up 1.77%, closed higher than the open and above the previous day's high. So that is a bullish bar. And you can see that we've got a couple of open gaps here on the way back up that the U.S. market doesn't have. So those open gaps could potentially act as resistance. And on the weekend, I talked about, the first thing that would convince me something new is happening is a close above last Tuesday's high. So there's Tuesday's high for the NASDAQ, for the S&P 500. And then if we look at the Canadian market, the Tuesday's high is way up here, but those open gaps could potentially act as resistance on the way up. Now, the Canadian market tried to get back up above the 100-day moving average, while the U.S. market, both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, both tried to get up and over the 200-day moving average, and that didn't happen in both cases. So what was previously support is now acting as resistance. Looking at the VIX or the fear index, it was a wild day yesterday, but the VIX for the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, or the Russell 2000, none of them closed below the lower channel line. So we're still all on buy signals, looking at the major VIX indices. Now, looking at the U.S. most actives from yesterday's trading action, there were not a lot of trend changes from yesterday's big swing day, but there's NVIDIA closing higher, still closing below the lower channel line, no change there. Courier Mining, no change there. No change for Supermicro. It dropped sharply on Friday, continued to move lower on Monday, but actually closed up a little over $1 at the end of the day. So it didn't close above the previous day's high, so nothing going on there. And of course, the market has really hated Supermicro since back in November, and that has not changed. And of course, it's not going to change on Tuesday. Ondas, on the other hand, had a quiet trading day yesterday. It is trying to hold the flypaper channel, so the market still likes this stock, but nobody's enthusiastic about buying it at the moment. That has a lot to do with what's going on in the rest of the market. Looking at Intel and inside day on Monday, no change there. Now, American Airlines did trade above the upper channel line, but did not close there. So we're looking for a close above $11.18 on Tuesday. And then NU Holdings actually ended the day on a buy signal. We closed above the 1457 level. We closed at 1468. You may want to wait another day before jumping into that stock. No joy for Tesla, still closing below the lower channel line. No joy for SoFi. And Palantir still on a buy signal. No change in trend there. Looking at the Canadian most actives from Monday's trading action, starting off with New Gold, no change there. We saw Canadian Natural Resources trade down to the lower channel line, but did not close below it, so no change there. No change for Power, no change for TC Energy. We traded below the lower channel line, but did not close below it, so no change for TC Energy. Then looking at Whitecap certainly traded below the lower channel line, but came back and closed in the channel. No change for B2 Gold, inside day on Monday. Inside day for Barrick on Monday. Cenovus still closing above the upper channel line. No change there. Similar situation for Suncor. Then we had Baytech. Yes, we traded below the lower channel line, but did not close below it. And then looking at the First Bank, we've got TD Bank trading up into the channel. No change in trend there. And we still have Manulife on a buy signal right now, so no change in trend for Manulife. Okay, folks, well, Monday's going to be a memorable day. You don't often get a big short covering rally based on insider trading, based on a lie from the President of the United States, but that's what happened. So things have settled down quite a bit on Tuesday morning. And again, the major trend is to the downside. I don't see a lot of people jumping in to buy stocks on Tuesday morning. Have a great day. Next time you'll hear my voice is on Wednesday morning.
Thanks for tuning in until the very end of today's stock market timing educational video. If you found the content valuable, don't forget to express your support by hitting the like button, leave a comment, sharing with your friends, and subscribing to our channel for more insightful updates. Remember, in the world of stocks, timing is crucial, and following the trend can be your greatest ally. If you would like more information on how we can help you better time the stock market, please visit theyuptrend.com.